Well, welcome, Human Design Book Club. We have Jen, Kayla, and myself, Rebecca. Today we're talking about the White Book from the Book of Letters by Ra Uru Hu. Keep calm and read books.
Woo!
Jennifer Cordes, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I have been obsessed with human design for, about 2.5 years now. Kayla and Rebecca and I met early on, and it has just been the most amazing pod squad. I'm a 3/5 sacral integration generator, quad right, and I like to include environment because so much of who we're with and where we're traveling, I think, is important. So I'm a mountains person.
Awesome. Kayla.
Hello, I am Kayla. I have been in my human design experiment for about 3 years now, and my focus is all about the family. So I am a homeschool mom of two, and I'm excited to read the book with you guys.
Yay. I'm Rebecca Anderson. I travel around with my husband and my little dog in our RV, and so we'll be at various places throughout this journey. Right now, we're at a campsite in Texas and headed west to California over the next few weeks. So I'm a 2/4 splenic projector, quad right in mountains. Been in the human design experiment a couple years, a little over, and very, very obsessed with it and love reading everything about it. Love book clubs. So we're excited to bring book club to you guys. Jen, would you like to tell us about our vision statement?
Yes, like I said, we've been together for a couple of years now, and when we were talking about doing this, because we all love to read, it was like, what was keying into what was really important to us that honored our values and beliefs and the components in our design. So when we thought about this big picture where everybody could come together, it was everybody can live their truth, they can make decisions easily, you're safe to tell your story, we get to have fun, and we get the community that supports us with that beautiful balance of freedom to explore our path, and yet you've got a home base to come back to.
Wonderful. We envision a world where everyone can live their truth, everyone can make decisions easily, people are safe to tell their story, people get to have fun together, community supports us while giving us the freedom to explore our individual paths.
Mm. Mm.
Well, let's just dive right in. The White Book. Who would like to give a summary about what we've read so far? We're just starting off with the first 30 pages or so. It's kind of the first chapter or two. I could summarize it unless Jen or Kayla, you would like to.
Oh, go ahead.
So I just
Wonderful.
want to say real quick, I think it would be neat to talk about the fact that this is correct, the second book that Ra Uru Hu ever wrote. So this is second behind the Black Book, which I have read before as well. And so it's really neat because the Black Book is kind of the pure information that he got from the voice from his encounter in Ibiza. And then this is a little bit more of him working with the information that he got and how we can utilize this in our designs. So I'll let Jen go through a little bit more of like an overview, but I thought it would be nice to just talk about that this is really a really like solid foundation of what the basics of design is all about.
Yeah, the mechanics. When I was reading this, that's what I felt like a lot of this was when you're under the hood, this is how the car is running. So when he was going through, and this beginning first 33 pages really is just a glossary of information, but they're the key terms that pretty much underlie everything when you're reading human design. And when he began with neutrinos and he talked about the light that is heavy, I have read so much of Ra and I don't remember coming across that anywhere else. And I thought, what a beautiful way to talk about something that is everywhere, like so much and so dense we can't even conceive of it. Like he did talk at one point that if we could see neutrinos we wouldn't see anything else because that's all there is. So I really like this way of just kind of summarizing some of that foundational aspect, which is this essence of we're programmed by the neutrinos, the planet is filtering it, and it's running through our crystals, and everything starts here. Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that was a really cool way to look at it.
The light that is heavy is one of the few very beautiful things.
Yeah.
The way that Ra has described
Yeah.
things.
He's-
I love that. And it's
Yeah.
very much that it's like we are in a water of
Yeah.
all of this information coming down, and it's like we can't see it, but it's there. And so it's a really cool way to think about the Maya that is that we're living in.
Yeah. The neutrino ocean. Yeah.
Mhm.
What about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, well, my impression of the book so far, like you said, all we really have had is a glossary. And it was very interesting information, mostly stuff, we had already known. So it was just a matter of reinforcement of learning stuff that we've known before. But I did find the structure of just reading through a glossary a little hard to digest. I kept wishing that there was a story that was being told. So I'm sure we're going to get to that more in the later parts of the book as far as how it all comes together. Um, so that was just kind of one of my initial impressions about what we've read so far. So, but it was definitely interesting. And what do we? He definitely talked a lot about the crystals, the design, the personality, and then magnetic monopole, obviously, and the G center coming together, and when they all started, where they all came from. And to me, even having known all of this info for all these years, I do still find it kind of hard to grasp what it actually like means in my body, in my heart. Although I know it's like, Jen, you've got it. To me, it's kind of like still very weird in a way. Um, but I love learning more and more. And each time it's like a different way of trying to think of it. Someone needs to make a video or like a movie, a graphic movie of how all these things come together with the neutrinos and the crystals and the birth and all of that. And that maybe then be able to piece it together. But that's how it's still a little bit wild for me. So if anyone else can relate, that's my take. But I still love it. So
I just imagined that movie. It's a Pixar one, and it's like all the feelings inside the person's head. And there's like the little anger guy, and then like the happiness, like all of those, but like the centers and stuff,
yes.
all of how they're all saying different things. Yeah, that would be interesting to watch.
Well, he talked about when he had his encounter with the voice, for a part of that, the planets each spoke to him and they had their own voice and they had their own personality. And when I read that, I started to get a better sense of how he chose to express this information. Like if you kind of think of it as it's all a living, breathing entity and we're a reflection of it. Like that's kind of how I get behind it. It's like there's all this energy out there and it's no different than we could all watch the same movie and we're going to have very different perspectives because where we came from is different and the way we see the world is different. I always think of that neutrinos are out there, they're floating around and they filtered this. And the way I look at it is different from Kayla, from Rebecca, from everyone else. And it's that information moving through us that creates something unique. I think that's why it's got to be one of the words you use the most often was unique. And that's the point. And it's just how these crystals are coming together, how the body interprets it versus how the personality interprets it. Yeah, you can't get away from the planets.
Mm-mm. No, it's interesting because it's like as they come through the planets, it's like it's flavoring them and how it's gonna influence everyone and everyone personally.
Yeah.
Each and every day and moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
The neutrinos are a very cool thing to just like think about because it's so hard to grasp. But as you observe it through just like the design each day that's coming through, it's really fun to watch when energy comes on, like what is hooking up what in your design.
And then you can get really trippy because the neutrinos are passing through everything all the time. So the fact that I'm sitting here and my neutrinos came from this planet, but it came through my plant and it came through my dog and then it came through me and then it moves to my neighbor. Like it's just, I think there's only one of us here. Like it really is this incredible, you can start to see where metaphysics comes from and that everything, it's almost like everything comes down to a singularity. Like it's very trippy. You could just meditate on this.
Yeah. Ah, well, I was having a vision just now of, so like when we are born, like imagine a baby coming out, it's like the skeleton of the human design chart
Mm.
is all there. It's all built. And there had already been the first imprintation of the design, the 88 degrees prior. But then this skeleton that's ready for whoosh, there's a neutrino stream going by. This is what I'm imagining. Someone else could explain it differently. Whoosh, and then imprint from those, it's planet, sun, earth, all of them in like a river.
Yes.
And then they hit the baby, and then the baby activates of that's again, that's just the personality side. So it's like wild for me to imagine that this 88 degrees, there was a river that came through somehow or through the mom, or my mind needs to have a image of how that, so it's like half happened this time, the second half happened at this time to bring it all together. And then now every stream that is hitting us is being flavored by what was already imprinted.
Yes.
It's pretty fun, but do you guys see
trippy.
it that way, or do you see it differently than that?
I think that's a great example. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I always think of it as clay that holds sort of an impression, because in other places he talked about how, our cells can do more than one thing, but they tend to specialize. And I always think that's how we are, is that we contain the totality, right? We contain all of it, but you contain this gate with this particular expression, and Kayla has this one, and I have this one, even though we can do all of it. It's kind of like being able to speak every language, but one is your favorite. But yeah, two different swishes. It's very trippy.
Right, what do we got next?
It's basically what we just said.
What we were just talking about.
Yeah, it was a natural evolution. Yeah. And
Yeah, I love that.
I think undefined personally is a little bit easier to pick up on. Can you go back a second, Rebecca? Oh, the other one.
Right here?
I suspect undefined is a little easier to pick up on, just because when it turns on, it's there and you notice it more. Because personally speaking, when I carry definition in a center, I'm so used to it being there, I don't totally notice the nuance as much. That's me,
definitely.
Though. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. It's the open centers, open gates that we're the most like noticing and interested in our lives, right?
Yeah.
I think about that with the centers a lot. Like which we can talk about in our next video, that it was particularly, I was going through the head center, the root center, the splenic center. I have all these defined. They're very less interesting to me. And I'm like, let's get to the G center and the will center, because those are super interesting, because I have those undefined, because they try to rule my life for the, incorrectness. But that's where I'm trying to decondition from the most. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
What's next? Tell us about this one.
What I found interesting was that's actually his statement, that each has the same capacity to guide the life. And this was one of the first places I saw him talk about solar plexus as spirit consciousness, which is beautiful. But I thought, how interesting to say that that has the same capacity to guide the life, when we all know that the solar plexus is in mutation, it's in evolution, it's still growing and developing. So I kind of think what that will be like for Kayla, with emotional authority compared to what it might be like for a rave is probably going to be very different. I
Mhm.
always thought that was interesting. They're all the same. They all have they all have the same capacity. They can all get you where you have to go, but the way that it happens is so different. Yeah, he had them tied into the circuits, which is that bottom line of sensing, knowing, understanding, taste, intuition, instinct, and feeling, emoting, and sensitivity. But I would wonder sometimes if that ajna is the hardest because it never lets go. So when you
Yeah,
think about the
see,
people before us, yeah.
this is very interesting when you really step back and look at it like this. I love this visual
Mhm.
because the mind part, though, gets a bad rap. Like
Yeah.
we're not, it's confusing because we're not supposed to listen to the mind.
Yeah.
But if we look at it here, it has a place.
Mm-hmm.
It has
And I
its
like
own
how you
awareness.
mentioned,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. Its own
yeah,
awareness. Because we're taught focus so much on body, 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 which great, fine. But like you said, there's a place for the mind too. It got us here up until
Mhm.
1781.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've always heard it described too as like any of those channels there within like the sensing and the knowing and the understanding, that's also like potential inspiration for others.
Mm.
So there is that aspect of correctly expressing yourself and that sending generator off who knows where because of your true expression
Mm.
of that awareness as well. And I liked how he did it by those different channels as well within the streams because it kind of gives you when you look at the channels that you have another way of just like looking at any
Mm.
of those like circuits and what
Yeah.
kind of like awareness potentials within them.
And I think the difference too is especially when we look at mind consciousness or ajna, because I have a defined ajna to throat, that still has its own function. It just doesn't mean I should necessarily guide my life by it because that's not my particular authority. Right. So I think if you thought of, let's say, maybe a mental projector, that's a completely different function for that person than it is for someone that isn't one. So I always think
Mhm.
it's not like you can just turn that part of you off, but maybe that isn't the best equipped to guide you because something else is more dominant inside. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because if I rely on my mind, I stop being a generator.
absolutely. Oh, this is a little bit about what we were talking about before as well.
Mm.
The creation of life. We have the crystal bundles, preparation, and conception.
Yep.
Anything here that we haven't touched on yet?
I just think it's interesting how Ra wasn't really religious, but so much of this, it's almost like divine to where it's
Mm.
like before like when
Mhm.
all of the stuff is going on, like it's like the universe or God or whoever already knows that like who you're gonna be.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like even before you're born, like there's like that signal that gets sent up that says, hey, like personality crystal, I'm getting ready for you. Like your aura is being built
To
as
hold
you're in
you.
the womb.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like it feels very divine to me.
Yeah. Or
Absolutely, which is
yeah.
hilarious why he would say he's not, because that is literally what it is.
It is. He would just say it's all a program. Like, well,
Yeah.
okay, but that's another way of looking at it. And it's not, it wasn't the focus of this. But even if you think about that preparation part, it's not like that's happening before you actually have sex or before you go do the in vitro thing. So even there, it's like what Kayla just said. There's some part of this that's preparing for this process before you even realize, oh, hey, I'm ready to go. Right. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's just incredible. Or to realize as according to this knowledge that you have to have that channel of 659 for the process to complete, or someone needs
Mhm.
to be near you. Now, I don't mean someone's watching in the room while you're having your
Yeah,
time, but
yeah.
it could be someone in the apartment below you, right? Or
Or on the bus next to you the next
the
day.
next day when you rode home, because that is still inside the woman's body for a certain period of time, right? Like it's just so as much as you can think, I've controlled all of this and no one's around and there's no transit. But man, you hook up with you walk next to your neighbor 24 hours later and there it goes because it was waiting for it. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Oh,
just
I hope
crazy.
my birth control works. Oh, that's so good.
Here we are with your rivers you were talking about. And
Yeah.
you did mention, and I've heard this so many times, that the premature births do not alter it. That 88 degrees is just what he was told, but it's very much about when the neocortex is finished. So it's kind of like this idea of the design crystal is pulled up from the Earth's mantle. It starts building the body inside the mother, but even then, it's almost like it can't handle the neutrino ocean, or it can't receive it because it's not sophisticated enough. And I always thought that's an interesting way of looking at it. And then you've got the time while the personality is in there, because it's got to get used to the vehicle. Yeah, it's very crazy. And he called it,
Yeah,
that's that natal stamp. He called it the personality's potential. And I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it also, because we tend to look at the black and think, well, this is who I am. It's like, that's what you can be. Are you following your strategy and authority to get you where you're supposed to go, to be with who you're supposed to be with, to do what you're supposed to do? Then these are gifts that you can draw from. But in and of itself, it's like there are all these dormant aspects of us that get turned on at different times in different ways.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I've heard of it as like a potential, but
Yes.
that makes perfect sense because
Yeah.
they always describe like view is it's like you're looking at the wrong window if you're
Yeah.
looking like having your view wrong. And so that's a great aspect to where it's like, okay, but you can only express correctly when you're looking out the correct window, when you're on your right path, when you're with the right
Yes.
group, those things.
Yes. And some parts of you come out in different ways at different times based on the transit or everything else. But when we just look at a chart and we can think, well, the black is who I am, like parts of it are there at different times. It just depends.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's potential.
Makes me think of duality in a
Mhm.
way. I don't know if it's exactly right in line with this, but he always said there's this and that. There's the expression or not. And so I wonder if like the potential has to do with, if
Mm.
you know, off or on.
Yeah.
And there's other people call things the low expression and the high expression, things like that. And it makes me think, the interesting thing is, makes me think of like hanging gates, dormant gates versus full channels that are personality or not. It kind of really is it really, yeah, what is it like when it's potential that's not fully realized or not?
And
I haven't really contemplated that before.
it seems like that's why you have to surrender to strategy and authority, because no matter what, you have a sense of something below you or unconscious that people tell you or you notice it, but you can't tap into that at will usually. And then you have this potential that you think you are, but maybe you can't always grasp that. So it feels like we're always teetering on this edge. And it's like you're trying to reach below and you fall. You're trying to reach above and you fall off the other side. So it's like the only thing that helps you navigate that is that what's consistent within you, strategy and authority. And then there's that point of like, I don't get all of this. I think I want this. I think I have this, but I know what my gut feels like. I know what my spleen feels like. I know what my emotional wave feels like. And the farther on I've gone and the more I've read, the more I get why he goes back to surface mechanics over and over and over. It's because this stuff is fun, but you're not going to have a direct experience of it usually. It's always just whatever your strategy and authority is.
Mm.
Now, when I was putting this together, it's like this sense of you're reaching this way or you're reaching that way. And it's Gary Zukav talked about that forever ago. Somebody was coming to fix his roof, and this guy was up there and he was missing a tool. And he's like, okay, throw it to me. And the guy down the ground is like, oh my God, you're going to fall. He goes, no, because I'll never reach farther than I can while I maintain my balance. He
Ooh.
knew enough as a roofer not to be tempted to try to go too far and then fall off and break his neck. He's like, I know exactly how far I can go. And I thought, that's the difference. Strategy and authority shows you exactly how far the reach is versus the mind is so busy trying to run around, you can't keep your balance.
Ooh,
I like that.
that's neat.
No. These were just some neat little things.
Mhm.
And it caught my attention because my analyst training was pretty planetary. Loved it, amazing, wonderful. But you always hear about, the son as the light from the father. And this was the first time I was reading it. It was like, no, that earth is your direct inheritance from the mother. And I thought, thank you, let's represent the women, right? So, but when you're looking at the design or in the red, and it's like, these are where your parents are. And then I also liked his perspective on the earth in general, where grounding and rooting, like I've heard that a lot. But what I really liked was that part about this is where we find our stability, because we can get so caught up on the sun, right? That's the big glamour shot, and that's what gets all the attention. But you'll burn out if you don't have a place. Where do your roots go? And I really like that approach.
Mhm. One of the things that really stood out to me when he was, it kind of goes with this, and I'm not sure if it's on the next slide or not, but he was talking about Jupiter as the teacher and the 12-year cycles. And he had said that it's like Jupiter kept putting me through my paces. It's like these cycles of teaching and learning through Jupiter. And I haven't dove into it in my design yet, but it just like that small amount of him talking about Jupiter made me want to like look at mine and look at when like the cycles are to kind of see if it maybe lines up with different things that I've been like kind of going through the paces with.
Mm.
I thought that was kind of a cool one.
Yeah, because that's your law. Yeah.
I thought this was interesting when he talked about the health centers being the spleen and the throat.
Mm.
I definitely like recognized the splenic center being the center of well-being, health, immunity, that I had kind of forgotten that the throat is also a huge part of that. And especially we've learned in the past when you have a direct channel from spleen to throat that you can maybe feel invincible.
Mhm.
So you've got to bring your awareness back to what you're doing in the body, in the here and now. But um, yeah, I love that the throat is also a health center.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm so focused on the spleen because of what we read and we're taught over and over. And like, yeah, the throat is one too.
I wonder how that goes with it being the center of manifestation and communication, and how much of, our physical health has to do with what may or may not be blocked in manifestation, or if manifestation is happening. We haven't really talked about this before,
Hmm.
but it just made me think of it just now.
Yeah, because
Ayla,
I'll have to think of, I don't have a something that's coming up for me right now when you said that, but
oh
maybe
yeah,
next
not
week.
at all.
So.
I
Yeah,
had like 5 things come up all at once. Because when
tell
you
us.
think even about how the throat is literally manifesting the body. So you think about like that's the very early part about you can't begin to build the vehicle until you have the throat even inside prenatal. So you kind of think like that's the beginning of the expression of the body graph or what the holistic is on the
Oh,
surface, right? Then I also kind of think, and then my mind flashed to where he noticed anecdotally that a lot of 3420s would have thyroid problems because that's like you're driving a Porsche and your foot goes right down on the gas and off you go. Whereas maybe you're not checking to see if there's traffic first, just right. So it's like, I wonder if that aspect of seeing that as a health center, aside from the vehicle is built that way, if it isn't a part of how the energy is being used, right? Are you checking traffic before you try to go 90 miles an hour? Is this even a place that can handle it? Can your car handle it? Do you have enough gas in the tank, right? So maybe a generator can get away with that a little bit easier than a non-sacral being. However, there's only so far you can go before you burn yourself out. So when I started to think about this as a health center, I saw it more as using energy of the body.
Makes
You're
sense.
trying to push too hard because illness in the beginning, he would kind of look at illness in the undefined centers. And it's like, it's how you use your defined as well. Because I wonder at times if you have a definition and you're not trusting it and you're not letting it express, that's its own problem. That's stagnation of energy, which is very different than trying to push something that you shouldn't be pushing on. But
Mhm.
yeah. And then
Well,
thyroid,
and
of
we had
course.
talked about how like the spleen to throat, those health channels there. Like I noticed that people in my life that have those health channels, specifically from the spleen to the throat, I feel very safe around. It's
Mm,
like their ability to vocalize what's safe and what's not safe in each moment is a very comforting thing. Like my husband has one of those, and his ability to like understand a situation and like what is safe or not safe about it, like that trust is just there. So that could be a cool thing to look at the charts of people you guys know. And if someone has those, like, do you
Mhm.
feel safe around them? And that could be an expression of how they're using the channel as well, too. Like if they're, incorrectly, they could manifest a feeling of not safe or safe as
mm,
well, too. So that's just something that stands out to me as those two channels there.
yeah.
That
That's a
makes
good point.
sense.
Mhm.
Self manifests from the G center.
I thought you would like this, Rebecca, with your undefined G.
Uh-huh. Higher self expresses from these gates. And are these all the gates of the G center? Yeah.
Yeah, but they're the opposition ones. So it was how he paired them.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So just to like explain that a little bit more, like the 1 and the 2, um, on the mandala, right? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
on the
talking
wheel.
about?
Yeah.
Hmm. And then 713. I just love all these gates. 46, 25. Then we got 10,
10 and
15 over
15.
here.
Yeah. And I like they were a little bit different keynotes, right? Because of course we're used to self-expression, behavior of the self, but I kind of liked the flesh, the blood, the nature, the
Mhm.
aura. Like they were very, and some of them were familiar, but some of them were newer, and I liked that. And there was a course I took a while ago from Martin Grassinger, and one of the things that he talked about with 25, which of course universal love, but that is tied to the blood, and you start to think of the blood, it's not discriminating. It nourishes your toe, just like it nourishes your heart, just like it nourishes your eyeballs, right? It's like this
Mhm.
love course for everywhere without any sense of you have to earn it or not earn it. The pinky toe is just as important as the big finger, right? So I thought that
Yeah.
Mhm.
was a really neat way to look at this.
I like these a lot. And I feel
Mhm.
like there's been a lot that's come up with just our discussions in general about the 2551. That it's
Mm,
like you can read one description of a channel, but as you read more and more, you get like these little hints of this bigger picture of
mm.
how like deep all of these aspects go.
Yeah.
I think it was in this area where he was talking about, I think he must have been talking about the 1-8 in this area because he said, knowers don't listen well. They are
Mm.
here to say, I know, not they know. And I thought that was kind of fun. He must have been talking about at least the one when he was
Yeah.
talking about that.
Because you're
And that,
doing your own self-expression.
yes.
It's self. It right. It's just for the beginning. Yes. Yeah, I thought these were very cool.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And especially that because I have 13 too. And there's I think it's bigotry is the line, which I always think of it not so much in the negative sense of bigotry, but selectivity, that there really is this sense of my body knows when to be open in interaction or when not to, because it's unconscious. And my mind can't tell me that. My personality can't tell me that. But there are certain people where I just sit down and my arms go back and I'm like, tell me more. And it just happens. It's like I'm witnessing whatever they have to tell me. It's
Mhm.
fascinating to watch.
Definitely. Well, and we just threw in some questions here and we were playing around with the questions by type. For example, I'm a projector and these are the questions that just first poured out of me. Then I was like, well, I wonder if I would ask him differently for a generator for yes, no. So then I turned him into some yes, nos. And then I was thinking with a manifester, oh, and here's some more. I wonder what it would be like to do it more informing. And so this is how I threw it out there. I want to say,
Yeah, very
Kayla, what did
cool.
you think?
Yeah,
Uh,
it was
so-
cool. Because when you do generators, it's almost like the way you would talk to a little kid. Do you want this one or this one? Do you want this or this? Like it's so binary and it takes longer, but that's the process.
It is.
Mhm.
No,
Well, and that
I
brings
love
us
this.
to the end today. So yeah, next week or next time, we'll do this again on the next section. Yeah, this was only the first 33 pages of this book, and it's a pretty hefty book, 250, I think, total pages or so. And we're excited to dive in more and more. And hope you'll join us.